Muslims in America seem to have a special relationship with suburbs. New Jersey has a convenient location near two major metro areas, Philly and New York, and it was an early success story of suburban America. With that came strong Muslim communities. In fact, according to a study in 2014, New Jersey was the state with the highest percentage of Muslim residents out of all 50 states. As someone who grew up in a suburban Muslim community myself, I was curious about the Muslim New Jersey experience and what similarities it might have with my own upbringing. I planned my visit in time to attend a very special opening ceremony at the New Brunswick Islamic Center in Central Jersey.
Achieved one of our biggest goals, to achieve an institution where students can go to study and formally become ulama.
The Dar al-Fath College is part of Safina Society, an organization associated with the NBIC and founded by Dr. Shadee Elmasry.
Respect this tradition. Respect these great imams that were we only to know who they truly were, we would fall in love with them. And we would dedicate ourselves to the very least amount of service.
I had a chance to speak with Dr. Shadee one-on-one and ask him about his inspirations and philosophy on leadership.
I always felt that I loved the organization that was strong at the wheel. I used to attend to Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi in the Hounslow Mosque in England, and I used to attend to Sheikh Hamza in Zaytuna. And I felt that when you're in their gathering, the place is on lockdown. There's going to be no funny business here. And they're not answerable to anybody else in the sense that their strings aren't being pulled. No one's going to say no when they want to do something. So I felt that is really important. And we don't have anything like that in Jersey. So we need that. I'm a big believer in strong leadership. Strong leadership doesn't mean someone's selfish. It doesn't mean they're power hungry. A strong leader does a favor for everybody else. The first favor he does is he eliminates chaos, right? By being able to be clear, like this is your job, right? This is what we need. We need you to do this because we can't do it. When I said that, when someone tells me that implicitly, other things are not my job. Don't touch that stuff. You don't know what you're doing. Don't touch it, right? So everyone knows exactly what they're doing. But also, strong leadership has to have imagination. And he's got to receive the imagination of others, the ideas of others. He's got to weave it, integrate it into something simple that everyone can digest. I learned that over time. It's not something that just you're born with. It's a learned quality to simplify. Because when I started out doing this stuff, a lot of it people didn't understand. I'm the only one who understood it in my head. But that doesn't work, right? So I would have to explain it to people. And by the way, there is no harm. There's nothing wrong with being a follower. Nobody should think that. But there is an issue if you always a follower. Like at some point, that's not a good quality anymore. You should have grown into a position where you can be trusted.
Dr. Shadee has a large social media following in which he posts deep spiritual reminders and confronts issues facing the Muslim community. I asked him about how he views social media and the harms associated with it.
It's like, anonymous people, and they're saying the worst things. So that's something that's inside your heart that this platform has allowed you to get out, but that gas that you just released should have stayed inside you, right? And release it in the bathroom, right? But Twitter's a platform where he releases the defecation of his heart off to other people. But here's the other thing too. I'm calling certain things, certain ideas, the vomit and the defecation of their mind. Just because we know and believe that certain ideas are wrong. And we're absolutists on this, because the Quran is absolute, right? Certain things are just wrong. Here's the world of social media, though. Our absolute is also their poison, right? What we consider to be, So everybody in social media at the end of the day is viewed as a demon by somebody else. If that's the case, if I'm going to be a demon anyway, I might as well pick the people who I want whose hatred of me is not going to count against me. When I was young and I was ignorant, I used to have an opinion and I was to take it to its, treat it as an absolute and end up with conflicts with other Muslims who didn't believe in it, right? So I didn't know that there's like a gray area. So I don't want to conflict with a pious Muslim. That person has a maqam with Allah. I don't want to mess around with that. But some kind of heretical group, traitor, hypocrite, part of some nutty idea, conflict with that person, and that person hates you, probably a badge of honor, right? You're probably doing something right. Did not Sayyidina Ali said, if you want to know who's on the truth, look at where the swords of disbelief and hypocrisy are pointing. So the hatred of some people for you, that you're their demon, that's a badge of honor, right? And some people still have a naive view that you could be loved by everybody. And if you think that, then even if the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had munafiqeen hated him, the kuffar hated him, the right people hated him. We expect that. And that's why he's a prophet, right? Because he spoke the truth so clearly that everyone who had some disease in their heart turned against him. And anyone who had any goodness in their heart joined him.
After the event, I met with a friend whom I hold in high regard, Jawad Karim. Jawad took me to visit his local masjid, which happened to be hosting a family day celebration with games, food, and lots of activities.
So this masjid community was like, it was like my second home. I would come here every single day. I went to school here. My father, alhamdulillah, because he's very, very attached to the masjid, he wouldn't allow salat to miss him, except that he prayed it in Jama'at. So even as like a 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, my father would bring me with him to the salat for Salat al-Fajr in Jama'at. And in the East Coast here, it'll get as early as 4:45 a.m. sometimes. And I remember being very tough as a young man, but alhamdulillah for my father, he did that to me, and he also instilled in my heart that love and attachment to the masjid. And naturally, when someone grows up being attached to the masjid and attached to the community, you grow differently from someone else who is more attached to their own friend circle in their public school or whatever else. Yeah.
So you've been to a few communities now. You've been to Dallas, Chicago.
Yeah.
What realizations did you have coming back to Jersey about the experiences you had growing up here?
You see how much the Muslim communities are growing a whole lot. I remember when this masjid was just this box right here that you see. It's a very small area, and Jummah Salat would get packed. So it would take the entire capacity of the masjid. And now it's tripled, almost quadrupled in size. And also the community has quadrupled in size. And also the maturity of the community, because you have that second generation and that third generation of Muslims that are now entering the Shura boards, and they're a little bit more in tune with what the American Muslim community needs.
This is a more older community speaking American standards, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that they found a way to pass the baton over to the next generation successfully here?
Alhamdulillah, more so. I would say better than some other masajid. There's plenty of those masajid where it was just that old generation that were in power and they continued to stay in power. And anytime a new generation came in, they would make it difficult for them to make those changes that the community needed. Whereas MCMC, alhamdulillah, isn't like that. I don't think so. They've welcomed in the next generation, the younger generation. They've welcomed in change that was befitting, of course, for the younger American generations.
I really resonated with what Jawad said about growing up attached to the Muslim community. Having my childhood deeply intertwined with the tight-knit community in Dallas is what gave me the drive and the desire to work for the benefit of the Muslim Ummah as a whole. Sharing this drive is the inspiring journalist Rowaida Abdelaziz, who also lives in the central Jersey area. We met at Frappe Joe's in Edison, a popular local cafe that also serves halal food.
I think growing up as a post 9/11 kid, I knew that there was something wrong in the media when it came to the coverage around Muslims, right? And I don't think you need to be a journalist to know this. I remember seeing images, right, especially of the Iraq War, of towers, terms like Muslim and jihad come up on my TV screen. And so I knew very early on that there was a disconnect. And it wasn't until like my formal training, going to university, right, studying journalism and studying critical race theory and all of that, that I realized that these things are connected. And so that gut feeling that I had that as a child, I think enraged me to want to make things different and to be a part of that change. Islamophobia is a global crisis. It's exactly that, right? We've seen it in the US, we see it in the UK, we see it in parts of Europe, we see it in Muslim majority countries, right? And so no matter where you are as a Muslim, you're going to face a host of issues. But, speaking as an American Muslim in particular, with the slew of issues and concerns, there are also rights and privileges that we are afforded that perhaps someone in a different country is not afforded. And so, I continue to live in this country because it is my country, right? I was born here. I was predominantly raised here. I work here. I pay my money here. I pay my taxes here. I worship here. I pray here. I'm going to raise a family here one day. And so I think for someone who chooses to see the U.S. perhaps as a difficult place for Muslim Americans, I would say they're right? But no one country is going to provide a solution to all of our issues.
Rowaida's work is so critical in reshaping how Muslims are reported on by the mainstream media. But she doesn't stop there. Her stories actually impact real Muslim lives.
A lot of Muslims are very apathetic and cynical about the news, and they're like, we're never going to get good representation. They're all, making up stuff about us. And what I find inspiring about your work is that you've actually impacted Muslim lives. Tell me about some stories maybe of ways that, journalism has impacted Muslim communities in a positive way.
I love that question. Just because in an industry that can get dark and depressing, it's such a positive question. And I think we all need a little bit of positivity, especially when you're watching the news. Because for sure, the news is a very depressing place, right? Covering the news can be very depressing. And I'm not going to negate that fact. But then you work on some stories that have such an impact on people that you hold those near and dear to your heart. One is the story of two young men named Osama and Ahmad. They were Yemeni refugees who just had when I heard this story, I literally thought that it could be a movie just because of how wild it was. So they were Yemeni refugees who were literally fleeing death in Yemen. And they fled Yemen and found their way to Ecuador. These are two men who didn't know each other in Yemen. And they were starting over in Ecuador until their lives were there at risk. And so they decided to cross from Ecuador, spanning several countries, some on foot, climbing through jungles, some on a bus, through smugglers and coyotes, some on their own, all to make it into the U.S. Hours later, they were detained by U.S. immigration, who determined that they didn't have a credible fear and they were not able to seek asylum, and they were going to deport them back to Yemen.
Through hours and hours of phone interviews with Imad and Usama, Rowaida put together a heart-wrenching account of their journey.
We published it in 2020, and immediately after, I published it, I mailed them a copy and I sent it over to the immigration officials and the lawyers and everyone who was involved. And it was not that long after that their decisions got, changed 180. They both it was appealed. They were granted full asylum. One of them was already has his green card on the way. And they're now living a completely different life. They're in New York City. They're working. They're living. They're making friends. And just recently saw them a couple weeks ago. And so stories like them understanding how they went from being unheard in the system to living a life that they never could have imagined. And it's back to that feeling, like once I knew, I had a good story or I had a pitch that was accepted, or you're in the process of putting this together, it's a good feeling.
To meet with another Muslim inspiration of mine, I drove up to the northern Jersey suburbs to eat with Sameer Sarmast, who's a pioneer of halal food in the United States. With his channel, Sameer's Eats, mom and pop restaurants here in Jersey and around the country were put in the spotlight. I invited him back to the restaurant where he filmed his very first food review in 2010, Kebab Paradise in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey.
I want to know about the Jersey that you grew up in and how far it's come since then, especially with the halal food scene.
Oh yeah. Growing up here, there weren't too many halal restaurants, but you know, we lived in a time where we were trying to figure out how to get halal meat. There's actually not too far from here, there was a farm in Pequannock, New Jersey, a guy named Charlie, and he would allow like Muslims to come there and do zabiha. So that's how a lot of people would get their halal meat in the beginning. But then Patterson, New Jersey, is where a lot of these halal meat shops opened up. And of course around it you had a lot of the Middle Eastern restaurants and Turkish restaurants. But now here we are 2022, like you got some guy opens up a hot chicken spot and then there's like 3 others that pop up in the same area.
Sameer went ahead and ordered a huge spread of dishes, but he assured me that whatever we couldn't eat would be taken home to his family.
Yeah, that's the spicy honey barbecue chicken cutlet. This is my lunch, go-to lunch sandwich.
That sauce is killer.
Yeah.
Oh.
You have a lot going on there.
Yeah.
You got cheese, lettuce, but the panini has a nice crunch to it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As I put honey barbecue sauce in there.
Let's try the sweet wings.
Yeah, it's the honey barbecue wings.
And they're crispy, covered in the
Sauce.
delicious sauce.
Yeah, they deep fry them, they toss them.
This one's hitting too.
Yeah.
What is the flavor called?
Spicy honey barbecue.
Damn. It's got a tang to it too.
Yeah.
It's got sweet, spicy, tangy.
Hits you all at once.
Yeah, everything.
I love the wings. I've never had their tikka sandwich, so I hope it's good. You know what happens, right? People, they go to a restaurant that I go to, and they order like something completely different from what I actually ordered, and maybe it's not good, and they'll be like, "Oh man, that restaurant sucks, man, Sameer, whatever." I'm like, "Well, what did you have?" They're like, "Oh, I had the spinach potato wrap," and I'm like, "What the hell, bro?" Like, I'm like, you gotta have like their whatever, their signature stuff.
What kind of food gets you off your couch nowadays? What
Oh
excites you?
man, lately it's been Korean.
Korean,
Halal Korean.
barbecue?
Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with it many years ago when I went to ICANN Barbecue in Irvine. And so that was probably my first legit experience. I mean, how could you go wrong? It's like $35, $39.99. All you can eat. You go there hungry, and they've got I mean, I love spicy bulgogi. I love like short ribs, brisket, all that stuff, and I love cooking it. It's pretty cool.
Sameer's entry into the halal scene coincided with the rise of one of the most recognizable chains for halal food, the Halal Guys.
Back in the let's say late '90s, there was no like Instagram or stuff, right? And I remember I didn't have my driver's license, but I would still drive to the city and go get Halal Guys. At the time, that was popping up, man. It was so good that we would go multiple times a week.
Wow.
So we became cool with the owners because we came so much that my brother and I, when I say we, me and my brother, my little brother is there, what we did was we created a website for them, 53rd6.com. All right, so it just listed pictures that we took with our cameras. It had the hours, and these guys would communicate with us. And then eventually they started putting it on their paraphernalia. I still have shirts and the tote bags and plastic bags that they used to wear or hand out to the customers said 53rd and 6.com. So that's how you knew it was official.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It was, yeah, so even New York Times quoted our website. How are they doing now? I don't know.
You think the franchise system sort of like watered down the taste?
Oh yeah.
It's like the subwayification of a restaurant.
It's diluted it for sure.
Yeah. How long you guys been in business?
So next year is going to be 20 years, inshallah.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
mashallah,
so
20 years.
20-year anniversary next year. We got to do it big. We're going to do something with Sameer. I'll talk to you, inshallah.
Three brothers, man, always been real solid ones. The whole family, like the dad, the mom. That's why I love coming here. Whenever I'm in town, like I gotta come show them love because this is where it all started for me.
New Jersey reminds me a lot of my hometown of Dallas, Texas, both being places where suburban Muslim communities have grown and flourished. I believe tight-knit communities like these produce young Muslims who have a genuine care about their fellow Muslims, and the inspiring Muslims that I've met here are a testament to that.
الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين أن ينزل عليكم من ربكم والله يختص برحمته من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم